Hello, hello.
Nice to see you.
You too.
How are you?
Groovy.
All right, yeah. Last time I saw you, we did much talking about Wonka. We did about 6 things over 2 days, I think. There was a lot of Wonka chat. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. We had like quite a lot of Q&As back to back. But anyway, I've just walked from Charlotte Street Hotel from watching your new film, Heretic, and I'm still shaking from it. I've like can feel there's a reverberation going on kind of internally. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Wow. I deliberately didn't want to know much going into it. I think it's such a great way to go into the cinema, you know, not knowing too much so that you are really going in with a kind of clear opportunity to be impressed and entertained and taken on a journey. And wow, this was uncomfortable, entertaining, and just thoroughly brilliant to watch. So congratulations.
No, that's nice of you.
What was the kind of jumping in point for you? Because I did read, actually, one thing that I did see was that you were just curious about different roles, and particularly some of the stuff that A24 were doing, and really kind of impressed with some of the thematic stuff that they were doing and where they kind of throw their weight. What was the kind of the journey for you into this role and into this film?
Well, it just popped into my inbox. And I love to say no, because there's so many boxes I have to tick, I find nowadays, before I get off my arse and work. But this ticked almost all of them. As you say, it's A24 were behind it, and I've been a big admirer of what they've been doing, bringing life back to the cinema, being daring, being bold, breaking the awful stranglehold of sort of formulaic big commercial films, and daring to do odd stuff, blend genres, break rules, be weird, be screwed up. So that was one of the boxes that was ticked. It's a great character,
Yeah.
and appealed to me because I felt I knew this guy, not so much in the sense that I've met people quite that evil, but I've met people that annoying. I always thought he's a bit lonely and has compensated by trying to be funny and a sort of prankster.
Yeah.
And I've met those people.
Yeah.
And I like the guys who wrote and directed it. So it was in the end an easy decision.
Did you think much about his Did you think much about his backstory? Was that something?
Your watch
My
talks
just
to you.
talks to me. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, you okay? It's fine. It's just Hugh.
Okay.
Did you think much about his backstory? You know, in terms of, because we arrive at this character at this point, and you know, there's so much richness in the set production and the design, where you're kind of looking for kind of clues as to what got him to that point. Is that a part of a prep journey for you in terms of where the character, how he ended up where he is?
Very much so. Especially, I think, with what you might call baddies. You don't want them just to be moustache-twirling villains. I think you need a very detailed sense of what happened to them to make them the way they are. Whether or not it's ever explained or whether it's even overtly shown,
Yeah.
you need a sense of it, that they're damaged, that somewhere inside there's a quivering jelly. And I went to enormous lengths to build up a biography for this guy.
Did you?
Yeah, I mean, it takes months, and a lot of it's in tandem with the writer-directors.
Scott and Brian, yeah.
Scott and Brian. And a lot of it's just on my own, this ballooning biography that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I call it marinading, and you just sort of end up on the set on day one, thoroughly drenched in this character.
Great place to start. And music is part of his performance, I think, is maybe a nice way of kind of that.
Right.
Yeah. And I wondered for you, in terms of what was in the script, was all that in the script, you know, those particular 3 songs, you know, the Hollies and Radiohead and Lana Del Rey. That's all because it's so clever. The script is so clever, and his intelligence, and his kind of almost professorness to kind of what he's talking about. I'm really cautious about not giving too much away for people, but those 3 tracks in particular, and how it's part of his performance and his to those 2 characters. Was that always in the script?
That's Scott and Brian's writing. Yeah, they went to enormous trouble to write Mr. Reed. The story they tell is that they wanted to do a film about religion, and they needed a character who had great arguments for why faith might all be a nonsense. And then they realized they didn't know those arguments. So they then read everything there is to know about religions of various kinds, and they distilled it into these arguments that my character gives in this film. But they are, as you say, the arguments are done in a sort of performative way, and I think he's done it many times before. It's almost like a sales patter. Mm-hmm. Or like the university professor who's worked out over the years, the kids laugh at this joke, they laugh at this joke. And I think that's the way I played it anyway.
It's so hypnotic though whilst you're watching it, because you kind of, the whole, the Monopoly and then the music and how he kind of, you're kind of going, really? It's done so well. And so
and they are convincing arguments, quite apart from whether or not I managed to make them presentable.
Well, clearly, because I did. So,
okay, good.
Yeah.
But in themselves, they're fascinating. I was
absolutely
fascinated. The stuff about religion, and particularly about Christianity, was interesting to me.
Yeah, you learn about. I imagine. I mean, you learning stuff on the job as well about that. It's kind of like no way. That kind of first scene where we see the 3 characters in the living room sort of thing. That's a wonderful piece of almost theatre that you're watching unfold. What was the kind of reality of what you were given freedom to kind of shoot that? Did you shoot it in big kind of chunks and big sort of...
Yes, and I love that. The longer the take, the more comfortable I am, and the looser the camera movement. And in this particular case, with Jung Chung-un, I hope I pronounce his name correctly, our DP, who's a kind of genius, who did Wonka, by the way.
Yeah.
He's very fluid. The camera's flying around the oddest places all the time. And it just lets you just play off the other actors, which is what it's all about. Yeah. Especially if you've managed to really get the dialogue inside you so that it's like dance steps that you cannot forget. So you just take it off their eyes and invent completely new things every take. A trick I learnt from Meryl Streep when I did Florence Foster Jenkins. I was so astonished by how utterly different she was from take to take. And up till then in my career, I'd always thought there's the perfect take, which I kind of know what it is. I've done it in my bathroom in front of the mirror, and I'm going to keep doing takes until I do that. And that's all wrong. It took me fucking years to learn that.
God bless Meryl.
Yeah, God bless her for it. She's completely different every time. And the camera's much more interested in that. Yeah. In something fresh.
And is that a lovely kind of opportunity, particularly with this role, in that it really, it gives you that, you've got these kind of long sort of monologues almost that you can play with it and play with your delivery as well, because I think that's something that's really powerful about that particular part of the film is the personality and the performance and the space and the time and how you deliver it, because you're always guessing about what's the real him? Where's the real...
Yeah, it's got to be quite a smooth act,
yeah.
I think, and that's why I started learning lines. From a practical point of view, I needed to, because there's so much to say.
Yeah.
I started learning them weeks and weeks in advance, and every day I go for long walks and go through the whole film, every single line, over and over again, so that hopefully the idea was I could do long takes and then make variations within them and never be the actor searching for his next line. Yeah. Because that really holds things up. Yeah. I've been that actor, and I've certainly worked with some actors when they're going, it's not the character, it's the actor can't quite remember what their next line is. And I felt this guy had to be almost creepily nimble and fluent.
You mentioned the word creepily as well. Obviously, Radiohead's Creep is part of that. Fits in perfect, really, when we get further into the film. And, have a little kind of sing-speak version of it in the film as well, of the song.
Yes.
That's they've got to have given Brian and Scott clearance of that before. The idea that you have that in the film and then they go, no, you can't have it.
I know.
It's all got to be done up front. So I love the fact that they said yes to that.
You're absolutely right. What was the point of shooting it if we weren't going to get clearance? But I don't think we did have clearance from Radiohead before we started. We must have done.
Must have.
But at one such stage, I remember when we were shooting it, I said, I've come across Tom York, isn't that his name?
Yeah.
I think he was on side with Hacked Off and all that in the early years. And I think we exchanged supportive messages. I can't remember, but I felt like he was on side. And I said, well, let's ask him to do the music for the film. Anyway, I don't know what happened to that idea. The music's great anyway.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, and it's not too overpowering in terms of it's not telling you how to feel. As you go through the film, you want that whole experience to tell you how to feel, rather than the music going, you're going to be scared next, or you're going to feel this next.
Yes,
it's kind
exactly.
of really
and
delicate.
A lot of it's in counterpoint.
Yeah.
It's amazing how well the Hollies works as counterpoint in that trailer.
What was going on set with that? Because you see the record player being put on, but obviously you can't.
Yeah, you're not hearing it, no.
No, you're not. Pretending you're hearing it.
Yeah, and it's a shame because it's really, music's so helpful to getting the right tone in a scene and to realise what film you're actually making. But there is no way to really have that, as any sound engineer will tell you. I mean, you're either recording the dialogue or you're recording something else. And, you're acting in a scene in a film, you can't even put your glass down too heavily because it's going to screw up the line you're saying. Mm-hmm. And the older you get as an actor, the more you know just instinctively to wait till you've finished a sentence before you put the glass down. So soundtracks are very precious. I think, who was it? Someone, Ken Russell, I think, used to say, this is going to be the mood of the scene, and he'd blast the music out, and then you start acting. But you can't do the two together.
Well, last time we spoke, which was for this podcast, which was 6 years ago, I think, and you talked about how you had, for a particular role we were talking about, you had a cry playlist, where you had the Military Wives was your go-to cry song.
Yes, I've got a cry playlist. Yes.
What does Mr. Reed have? What playlist did you have for him?
Well, he had Bach and Beethoven. Bach in particular because it's quite mathematical.
Okay.
And I felt that he was crazily mathematical and worked out. And everything he does in that film is like a chess move where he's worked out every possible permutation that can happen at any moment. And I think has been through it before with previous victims. Bach and Beethoven. And Beethoven speaks to his quivering jelly.
Was the Scottish line in the script?
The Scottish line?
Yeah, where you say you've got to go...
Yes.
You've got to go down before you go out.
It was written, but I chose to do it Scottish. Yes, in your honour.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Just, if you don't mind, just before we kind of wrap up, out talking briefly about the response that Wonka had and that amazing, just childlike, just as an adult, it just reminds you to be kind of childlike and enjoy, sort of leave everything at the door and just kind of go and just wallow in this beauty and colour and escape in that film. And yeah, and it was just so joyful to watch that film and leaving it with, going at the cinema with 3 generations of people and everybody getting something out of it as well. Do you give yourself a moment to kind of just appreciate what that film did for people?
Well, I'm in a permanent state of despair and pessimism. But I was aware that it made $630 million at the box office worldwide. So people liked it.
People liked you in it as well.
Oh, well, that's nice. It's nice. And it's very annoying. that in one
What, the people liked
press
you?
conference with the rest of the cast and the filmmakers, everyone was asked, how was it making the film? Everyone said, oh, it was wonderful, it was wonderful. And then it got to me, and just to put a little joke in, I said, I hated it. And I was joking, and everyone else laughed, because I actually had a nice time. But it's annoying that then mushroomed into a whole thing about, oh, Hugh hated being the Oompa Loompa in Wonka. I didn't at all. But that's the danger now of the way the internet, social media works. It's like a truth now. I read, oh, he hated doing that film. That's annoying.
Yeah.
So please put that straight.
No, well, I will, because
Make it mushroom.
make how much you absolutely enjoyed that. Yeah. But when is the musical going to happen? Because you've given us little sort of segments of, your ability to song and dance, whether it be Paddington 2 and in this sort of thing. There's got to be an opportunity for you. I hope that it's one of those things that is in your to-do list of fully embracing that full musical.
I'd love to.
Oh, yes.
Unfortunately, I really don't have the talent. I mean,
but
I would kill I would kill to be able to tap dance and all that. I can't.
Well,
but I love those films. The older I get, the more I just want to watch Fred Astaire.
I think that there's almost a kind of sequel to be had with regards to Phoenix Buchanan, in terms of the musical set inside the prison.
I agree.
Where it's this song and dance moment
I
of.
agree.
I love that he's up for it. This is the mushroom moment.
I'm definitely up for it. Yeah.
Was there a piece of music for this film that was helpful for you in terms of, we talked about your playlist you talked about Bach and stuff in terms of what he would listen to, but was there a piece of music that you chose to help take you into this character whilst you were filming it?
It was Bach.
Was it?
It was Beethoven, yeah.
And as much as where you would listen to it before
all
going
the
on
time.
set?
All the time. I didn't have a trailer. I had an office.
Wow.
We were filming in a kind of industrial block.
Yeah, where did you film?
In Vancouver, or in a suburb of Vancouver. And I said, it's too depressing to have a trailer. Living in plastic doesn't suit me. So there were some offices. So I just sat in an office like an executive all day, or lay on the sofa, plugged into Beethoven.
Building up the backstory.
Yeah.
Last question. You mentioned Fred Astaire there in terms of you'd love to musical, that kind of thing. If you could be in the scene of any film or TV show that has existed, what would it be? Would it be something like a Fred Astaire or?
Yes, I think it would, for pure pleasure.
Any particular one?
I always thought they had a nice life anyway, those film actors from the 30s being driven in a Rolls Royce into a studio every day, under contract. Today you're doing a romantic comedy, today you're doing a musical. Lovely. There's a kind of security there. And they were terrible alks. They'd go and drink cocktails all night, all weekend. I think 30s Hollywood would have suited me very well.
There's nothing wrong with living that now, for sure.
Well, hard to live that.
Thank you so much for your time today,
Okay.
and just really wonderful to see you in this, and seeing you in different situations. It's great to see you fly with this.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Very
Hugh.
nice
Thanks
of
so
you.
much.